Hi, everybody. I'm back today with Stephen, and he joined me not too long ago for Secrets in Scotland with Stephen, with the dragon that he saw that he's been around his whole life and thought it was just rocks, and then started noticing and then noticing more. And what appeared to him was a petrified dragon, and this is in his hometown in Scotland. And so today, this is more Secrets of Scotland with Stephen, but it's going to be looking more in depth at a walk around that he took with his video camera and is bringing us footage of what he sees in real time when he was looking there. And then some other dragon related aspects and lore around Scotland. And we're going to look at some of these areas more in depth. Touched on a lot of this in our first talk, and now we're going to go a little bit more into depth with some of the things that Stephen's been finding, doing his own research, and then again, this walk around this location. You did a really great job with what you sent me, and we'll go here into what you found probably outside of your back door, literally.
Right, my doorstep, aye.
That's what I tell people. These things are just right outside your back door. You don't have to travel far at all to find things that are hidden from us in the landscape, in the architecture, and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the video clips that you sent me. If you could let us know what you're looking at.
I thought this was the tip of its left wing, but I've since found out it's just the middle part of the wing. The wing carries on another 500 feet, but this is like the carpus. That's a part of the wing. In here, there was like a landfill, and all the stuff that you find down there is all like mid 1800s, early 1800s bottles and plates and stuff like that. And I found a sundial as well. And there's a lot of like old electrical stuff. It looks like they've hidden something there. But I used to think it was a quarry. It was like the way it was cut out.
So this is Kinnaird Head in,
Fraserburgh. But aye, this is just walking around the middle of the left of its wing.
and you grew up here, right?
Yep, this is where was like my playground really.
Spent your whole life on or around here with a few
Yep,
exceptions.
it's a good lobster spot as well, all the way around. And I've since found what seems to be the shaft of a feather. Did you see the hole that I sent you? It's like a hole through a rock. I found them all the way around the coast, and it's like it must be the shaft for the feathers. The Ratchis, I think the name of it is. But just a perfect hole for lobsters to go into. So, and this is coming up to the. It's like it was used for drying nets, fishermen's nets, or so they said. But it looks a lot like Dakota, Alaska.
You're going to talk about that here in just a little bit because you had
It
some
could
different ideas about what it might be used for.
it could have been an ionospheric heater, maybe, because these technologies have maybe been here hundreds of years, and then they've maybe just covered it up in concrete. It looks like they were maybe antennas, which gets you into the weather manipulation again. With the, I remember you said you thought a lot of the storms were done deliberate. It could be this kind of thing. That's just me just maybe thinking too much, but I do get a feeling there's something hidden here.
We'll go into that more in just a moment. There's clearly an array or a pattern of some sort going on here with these posts.
I heard a story about Atlantis the other day, Atlantis and Lemuria, and I thought Scotland's, if you take away the S and the C, and it's a bit like Atlant, and America is a bit like Lemuria. The story I heard, they said there's like a dome protected the whole place. And I don't know if the dome collapsed or something like that, but I thought maybe something like that could make a dome, maybe because the ionospheric heaters excite other particles in the sky and give northern lights. It's an interesting place. There seems to be a lot buried there, I think.
Apparently so. Now, are you on the grounds of where the lighthouses are and everything?
Yes, it's the castle. I mean, maybe that's just the top of a castle. Maybe the castle was a bigger kind of castle. So I was trying to figure out what would have caused the petrification. And I think it might be either volcanic, a big Icelandic volcano or something like that going off, or something that we just don't know.
Seems like something happened.
But it seemed to happen, it must have happened so fast because of all the petrified animals you see, they look like they were like just in mid. It reminds you a bit in Pompeii.
Yeah, you sent me some good things with
The,
that. So we'll be taking a look at all that good stuff.
my eyes don't work very good, so I'm trying to see what I'm seeing here. But, that's just up beside the castle.
Now, these things look interesting.
I think they were marker boys. The RAF used to come in and practice bomb with their jets. There was a lot of jet activity here. Well, it looks like a harp station. When I was at school, we did like a tour of the lighthouse a couple of times. And they told us, I'm sure they told us this was like the first weather station. Because you see, they had the Stevenson's boxes and the barometers and all that kind of stuff. But maybe, like, if this technology's been in the go for hundreds of years, maybe they were actually manipulating the weather.
I suspect they've been doing that more than we can even imagine, the weather manipulation.
I think this is what maybe cut us off from the rest of the world. See how I believe we're surrounded in an ice dome. I don't think it was always like that. I think because you get the giant trees and all that. So it looks like something's happened and the roofs fell down or something. A couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about the dragon. I sat down on my couch, closed my eyes, and just imagined what the dragon was doing that day the petrification thing happened. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I thought it was my imagination, but I'm beginning to wonder if it's like astral projection or something, because as soon as I closed my eyes and I visioned that it was like away up in the clouds, up at the Ruvis Negra. It's like a mountain. I've seen it in old maps. It's like supposedly where the North Pole is. And then it flew down over Iceland, came down past Shetlands. When it was up in its nest in the mountains, I thought I was three chicks. That was the first thing I seen was three little heads. So I thought, oh, it must have had babies as well. But now I think it was because it's a Hydra dragon and it had multiple heads. When you see pictures of Hydra dragons, they've usually got about four heads. I thought, well, that would make sense, seeing three heads. And then I've been up and down the whole coast from England up to the west coast of Scotland on a little boat. So I know the coast pretty well. And when you go up Loch Ness, when you look at Loch Ness, it's beautiful, but it just looks like something. At the time, I used to think it was a meteor or something that came crashing into the place because it looks like the way the land is. But when I visioned the dragons flying down past Iceland, it came down. It seemed like flying around the coast, so it must use the water as an upward draft or something to keep it. It came down and it went flying into Loch Ness and landed in Loch Ness, brushing against all the trees at the side. And I thought, that makes sense to the way the land is up there. And then I started thinking about the Loch Ness Monster. But I stopped at Loch Ness for maybe a drink or a wash, and then it came down here, and all the way down this coast, all you heard was bells ringing, kind of the little churches. Because imagine how terrifying it would be if you're just sitting doing the gardening, and then as a shadow comes over the top of you, you look up and it's a four-headed 3,000-foot dragon. It's like,
It looks like you're looking at more of the wing down there, this area
aye,
here.
this is down beside the rock pool that I go in swimming sometimes. The Royal Bather, it's called. Aye, it's exact same, is it? It's like the top of these ones, the net dryers, there is actually four holes in the top of the thing.
So you've got on the left what we were seeing at Kinnaird Head over by the lighthouses,
Yep.
looking very much like what you see at the HARP facility in Alaska.
Just like a smaller kind of version, maybe.
And like you said, you sent me some notes, and one is that, maybe this was an early version of HARP, what you're looking at here at Kinnaird Head.
I believe all the technologies that we've had's been already on the go long ago, and they're just like reverse engineering stuff or something, or making it smaller, maybe.
And then here's another view of where you were just looking with the array of posts lined out next to the lighthouse.
Aye. It'd be a perfect place for doing that kind of thing, right in the corner, way up north.
Certainly something to think about. And I wanted to share one of the storms that I was familiar with from some of the research that I did on the timeline. And I was looking back at the years since 1945 in Wikipedia just to see what happened in each year. And the one I was remembering was the Burns Day storm. It was also called Cyclone Daria, and that took place on the 25th and 26th of January of 1990 over northwestern Europe, and is one of the strongest European windstorms on record. Caused many
Uh-huh.
fatalities in the UK and Europe, and it was an extremely violent windstorm with hurricane force winds over a wide area that caused widespread damage.
In January of 1990, a late-season hurricane stormed into southern England. 110-mile-an-hour winds left 39 people dead. It was the second time in 4 years that England had seen such a storm. Once again, the British were completely at the mercy of the gale.
And it's interesting what they say about it. It's like the storm began as a cold front over the northern Atlantic Ocean on January 23rd of that year. By the 24th of January, it had a minimum central pressure of 992 millibars, or 29.3 in what they say is Hg, and began to undergo what's called explosive cyclogenesis, which is sometimes referred to as a weather bomb. So they even
Uh-huh.
use that kind of terminology, like a military terminology of a weather bomb. It
Aye.
made landfall on the morning of the 25th of January over Ireland, and then it tracked over to Ayrshire in Scotland.
Aye.
The lowest pressure of 949 millibars was estimated near Edinburgh around 4 o'clock that day. And then it hit the United Kingdom and it tracked rapidly east towards Denmark, causing major damage and a further 30 deaths in the Netherlands and Belgium. So when we talked about this last time, that's the one that I had in mind. But then when I went to look it up, all these other storms popped up that were really bad that
Aye.
caused a lot of damage.
Aye. It makes you wonder, eh? Playing with things that they shouldn't be playing with.
And then causing oil tankers to break up and the damage from the oil spilling out into the waters. And this happened quite a bit around Scotland.
It doesn't seem to be happening so much now. It's sad to see it when the birds are covered in oil and all that. I don't like to see that.
And we're going to get to a place as we go through the photos that you sent me that we'll talk about that is in this area at Kinnaird Head. So let's see what else you sent me. This is your second video.
Google Earth says this is a government office under here. But this is just like beside the foghorn. I thought it was maybe an entrance to a cave, because it's right beside what they call the Royal Batter, the rock pool. I showed one of the locals a photo of the meat rocks, and the first thing he said was it looked like a wing, a bird's wing. Well, that's the Coast Guard lookout. Yes, I was looking at the word Coast Guard, and it's got guard, drag, Coast Dragon. When I first started looking into our history of our hometown, I never in a million years thought I would find a dragon and be speaking about it.
And it's really only been in the last 6 months to a year that you realized, right?
Yep. It was about a year ago I found the meat rocks, and it got me looking at. I was looking at the whole of the UK, and I could see a dragon there as well. Everything seems to be in the names of the streets and all that. If you look at the words and break them down, you can usually get a lot of clues. It reminds you it's like a computer program or something, the way the streets and everything's been named. Because Kinnaird, we a double N. I see it as Kinnaird now, with a G, so it's K-I-N-G. I see a connection with king and con, the word con and can as well. This is a bit lighthouse, is it? Aye.
So this is open to the public, it looks like.
Yep. It's funny, they do like little tours, and the guys that's doing the tours, it's like local councillors and all that that's doing the tours. I find funny.
No, that seems to be how they perpetuate what they want us to believe. In tours, tour guides, museums, movies. This is the story we want you to believe. But what's interesting about this location that you brought to my attention before you even realized when we talked last time is that there's a lot of dragon lore associated with it, what you were standing on and looking at.
Yep.
So there's definitely a connection there.
I like the flagpoles. Here's the wine tower coming back up, is it?
Like we talked about, the wine tower has dragon gargoyles on the inside around
Yeah.
the top of the lighthouse, like it's wrapped around it.
That's an old building, I think. It must be at least 400 years old, I would think.
Or maybe even older.
I've been trying to think how old this dragon is, and I don't think it's been there longer than 700 years, because it's starting to break up now with the weather. And the amount of motion it comes into that corner.
And that fencing around it is new also, correct?
Yeah,
Around the-
that just last 6 months maybe. This was bombed during the war. Must have been a pillbox. You said in the last video, Fraserburgh was bombed more than London.
More than London.
And they said they were trying to bomb the Toolworks, which is the biggest building furthest south of the town. And I don't think they ever hit it once. I was thinking if you was flying a plane and you couldn't get an easier target if you wanted. if you're flying into the northwest from Norway, you find Fraserburgh. It's the furthest east town. All you've got to do is find the biggest building furthest south and drop your bombs. But it was never bombed. So I just think all the bombing places that was actually bombed was hiding. Like I noticed one old picture yesterday was a lot of the headstones of the buildings have been removed, and I know it was the bombs that blew them off. I'm not sure what the headstones was, what they've hidden from us, but there's a few around the town that have just been cut clean off. They're just trying to erase some of our history, I think.
And that's a really interesting striation in the rock there. And it doesn't look
Yep,
like rock. It's like tissue, muscle tissue or something.
finger licking rocks. But I think that was the first spot that I thought, oh, that's not a normal rock formation I've ever seen. It just looked like a big lump of beef for the butcher. That's its nose. I was looking at its nose the other day. I think it maybe had fangs as well. Seems to have like two things at the bottom of its nose. There is guys go diving there, like, but be dangerous.
It looks like it would be with all the swirling.
Imagine building a three-story building on top of a dragon's head. And when you look at history, it looks like there was two of them before. And I think one of them got blown up through the war. I think the second head, it maybe looked too obvious because people would maybe start saying, why would they build a building away out there in the middle of in the water? So they must have just blew up during the war, I think. I remember when I was younger, there might have been four heads there because I remember there was bigger rocks and there was like four or five of them.
You were saying last time that you thought there was some kind of ritual going on around the head.
Yep, and that's just suddenly stopped for the first time in 50 years, maybe 100 years. They used to pour red paint right on top of its head. It would just appear every year, but the story was it was the king's daughter jumped from the top of the building or something else. But I noticed that's stopped now, so it's
But you thought maybe it represented something else too, as I recall. Like maybe something related to the power of the dragon or the dragon's blood or something like that.
well, I think they've been trying to extract something from its head. And the wine tower and the other tower that was on the second head. These dragons, supposedly, if you cut off its head, it could regrow its head. So I think they must have been trying to get whatever that stuff was for medical reasons or something. I've noticed as well, every creature that lives around here, lobsters and crabs, you can rip off their legs and their legs will grow back again. Or if they lose their legs will grow back again. When I was looking at the last video we made, I noticed I said dragon's lips, and I thought I'd better show you what I meant by the lips.
You're looking at the lips
That's what we're
here.
looking at now. I used to have a corn snake, a red corn snake. the bottom of it looks like it's got a snake-like bottom. Its mouth looks a bit like it's an elephant's, how an elephant's mouth is, but it's more like a whale. And then the top of its head it turns into like a crocodile nose, kind of iguana kind of look. So it's like a reptile, serpent, fish. That's just looking down its nose. And then you've got the left.
So is the tower built on top of the head?
Right where its eyeballs is that, I would think. Then there was a second tower, the same. Oh, that's underneath. That's looking inside under the bottom of the tower.
Did you go in there as a child?
Yes, there's 3 floors. The bottom floor was just full of rocks. So I think they've just filled it up with rocks to block off the entrance. An older man told me when I was young, you could get in just right where its mouth's at, if you go in there, but we'll maybe do that yet. An inside look. So then I looked up Loch Ness Monster in stone. I just typed that into Google and straight away up popped these Pictish stones from down beside the other Kinnaird Castle.
And I've got those in the PowerPoint, as you did quite a bit of research and found some other very interesting things, and that's one of them.
You can pretty much see its flight paths when you look at all the broken castle. It must have needed the upward current in the land. When the tide goes out, you get back, what do you call it again, back drafts or something. But so it must have stuck to the coast and maybe just destroyed a few castles in its path.
So are you looking at where the cannery was or still is?
Yes.
So there's quite a bit of activity around that spot, looks like.
Well, the cannery has been here that's been here for 200 years, I think. 150 years anyway.
Is it still operating?
Yes, it's busy. I think it employs probably employs a couple of hundred people, maybe. But it used to.
Yeah, you worked there for a while too, didn't you?
Yep, the cold store. I found a photo in this old Fraserburgh book before the breakwater was built. You see all the boats are just tied up. It must be on the inside of its wing. Yeah, if you English. Pardon me. Aye, its right wing would go right to that lighthouse. That's the length of it. So it'd be like a span of about 2,500 feet, I think. Here's the start of its wing.
Hi, sweetie. Hello.
Idiot.
What's Daddy doing?
She's never away from my side. Yeah, push. Sticking your bum in the TV. Yeah. I see. Oh, purr, purr, purr. Do you have any ideas what could have caused petrification?
I think there was a sudden event. My own opinion, I think the energy grid was destroyed, was deliberately destroyed. And I
Yep.
think that caused things to start going haywire. And there might have been more than one attack, but I'm certain there was at least one. That's
I'm thinking it.
my
I'm
opinion.
thinking it could just be a natural event that maybe happens over and over. Because I was thinking the last few days I've been thinking about in the beginning was word. And I thought, well, who wrote the word? So I thought, what if there was no beginning and there is no end? And it's just like a cycle. It just keeps like Russian dolls getting smaller and smaller and smaller or something like that.
Well, we may be living in a time, Stephen, when whatever is happening is becoming known, whatever that is. The concept of cycles of time have been around for a long time. And there's the purpose of creation. Who are we? What are we doing here? The role of the creator, how everything is all connected. So hopefully we're living in a time when things are coming back out into the light and we have access to more information about what looks like it actually happened. And the work that you're doing is important. The work that everybody's doing important to try to bring this back out so we can collectively look at it and say, okay, here's another chunk of the puzzle. Here are dragons that you're finding in Scotland. What happened to them? How did this happen? And there they are in stone underneath our feet, and we don't even know it until we start noticing things.
It's a good time to be alive for truth. And there's a lot of
Right.
deprogramming needs to be done.
That's exactly right. Clearly, we haven't been told the truth about our history. Lots of things to question, and we're just trying to figure it out. So I appreciate your work on this.
I've been thinking a lot about time lately as well. I've seen old photos with churches that don't have any clocks. So there must have been a time the clocks weren't there and maybe they weren't used for clocks. It got me thinking about the Roman numerals. I think the clock's been shifted 60 degrees. In Roman numerals, I think X should be 8 instead of 10. I think nothing's have been put in to confuse us.
It could very well be. And they've done a good job of that.
If you might think of say it's the devil that's doing it, and if it's, we'll turn the clock 60 degrees. Numbers as well, the name it's numbers. They've given us all this nothings, no things, to pull us as far away from reality as they can, I think.
It's like they turned everything on its head, upside down and inverted meaning, and because numbers are very powerful. So if they're going to want to keep us confused, part of that's going to be numbers, part of that's going to be words. And now we're starting to wake up from this deep slumber that we've been in on purpose. And thankfully, technologies are coming in like the internet that help us connect and try to put the puzzle back together again. So we were talking earlier about oil slicks and the sewage pipes, and you had mentioned this in our last talk about how these rocks were covered for a long time. And the rocks that you were talking about are very interesting when you look at it, and that's a great view of the head right there.
There's a good video on today.
Water looks pretty rough there.
That's why I don't think it's been there too long. Because the rest of it seems to be breaking up now.
This one seems to give us a nice view from the side of the nose, and that looks a lot like an eye. It's in the right spot. Very interesting.
Well.
So you said this area was covered?
It was all covered in oil, but there's something else happened as well. Oh, that's it. The whole area is, for about 100 years, fish factories with sewage pipes just going into the sea, and all the sewage and oil and everything just made it all black. It's only like the last few years it's cleared up a bit. A lot of the rocks are still black. I think there was 2 oil slicks in my life.
So more interesting patterns in the rocks seen here, whatever they are.
When I was looking at that the last few years, I thought it was one of those big trees that had been cut down. It looks a bit like wood, but and now we know it's the right wing. And that carries on right round to the lighthouse as well, the other lighthouse.
There's some more. Very intriguing to say the least.
That rock's got it really bad with there used to be a sewage pipe went right into there. So it was always covered in sewage. But then when the oil slick happened, it was just yuck. For years and years and years, it was just yuck.
So even if you were
And
curious,
this,
you wouldn't want to go take a look at it.
but the thing that gets me thinking it's a hydra dragon with multiple heads is this area is called the Four Corners. And I thought nobody really knows why it's called the Four Corners because there's no four corners there. But I think it's because there might have been four heads. Conairs, King Airs, corners. Because Aird, I think, long ago was Ord. So you've got Aird and Ord. Kinnaird would be King Ord. When I typed that into Google, first thing came up was a dragon page on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, so I couldn't get right into it, but there was a picture of a Prince Ord, and it was a dragon.
Let's look at some of the things that you found that are also very intriguing. And if you want to talk a little bit about what you were looking for that caused the petrified horse in Pompeii to pop up.
Yes, I was just looking to see if other petrified animals looked like, to see if it looked the same as the dragon's head. Feeling it was something that came from the north. That's why I think it was maybe volcanic, because the right-hand side of its face is still got colour in it. You can see the colour, the reds and all that. And it looks like it was maybe putting its head down.
So there's a good example of a petrified animal that you
It's
found.
a horse. Aye. It's similar. It's the white skin of rock. This is Fraserburgh. That's where the tower, it's just across the road from my house. The old tower that's supposedly the tunnel runs straight up from its head. That's exactly 66 feet above sea level.
So again, comparing it to the horse, and you've got clearly raised, it's raised here, like there's something there. Looks like you did some research on wings.
Yeah, that was my Carpometacarpus. That was the bit where the quarry is. And the ratchus. That's what I think I found. The holes that's all around. It must be where the feather goes into the bone or something.
And then you drew over around what you were seeing.
Yep, with the blue. That's where I'm at just now. But it could actually be bigger. But I think the wings were half the size the last time I seen you, but I figured out they come right round. It's sad because in a few years' time, the whole right wing will be washed away, probably. That's it starting to break up now, and I thought about taking a bit of it up here before it gets washed away. So I think it had four heads. Sounds a bit far-fetched, but I never thought I would be looking into dragons, but it looks like a hydra dragon. And another thing is, right in the corner of the right wing, beside the head, there's a hydro office there. It's like an underground Scottish hydro water electric place. I think it's water, Scottish hydro water.
It's interesting.
And it's underground, which seems funny. It's like below the wing. I think there was probably buildings here before it landed, maybe. And when this happened, its wings maybe come down and top a couple of buildings. And that would be why the government offices is maybe still popping up on Google Earth.
And it's really interesting that that would be the name of the business, the Hydra. It's like,
Hydroelectric,
yeah, it's like somebody knows.
Yeah.
At some level, somewhere, somebody knows, and they tell us, but we don't know. We don't know we're being told something. They seem to do that a lot.
Somebody must know. Either that or we're programmed by AI, and it's AI, it's on repeat for a few hundred years or something, I'm not sure. And I was looking at the petrification. I think there's been like 2 or 3 different ones. The first one, it was like giants, and then it was like every time it happens, I think everything gets smaller and smaller, maybe like a Russian doll. I've been thinking a lot this last week, and I've been thinking too much. It's been like in the beginning. I start breaking down the word beginning, and so it's like beg. I see it. There's a house here. The biggest house as you're coming into town is called Beggars. It was a manse for the reverend. I was thinking begging, beginning, beg. But I've been thinking too much, and it's like, it's a good time to be alive, so that's what I say.
I agree. I agree with you on that. You mentioned Osadine to me before.
Yes, that's my house. That's the name of my house. That means East Eden. Osse is east in German.
So that's interesting too. You get east of Eden. Right
East
there where you
Eden,
live.
right on a dragon's tail.
So you were looking around for information on the Loch Ness Monster and pulled up a couple of things. So I thought this was interesting because this illustration of the Loch Ness Monster does look like what you see of illustrations of dragons. with the shape of the head and
definitely.
everything.
When you go up to Loch Ness, it's about 20 miles long, and it really does look like something's come crashing into the earth, like a meteor or something like that. But now that I've found this thing, it must have had a splash around and then come up the coast to where we are, then down towards Edinburgh, another Eden. If you follow the water, you could see it could quite easily have lived in Loch Ness and just flew around, following the water all the way down to Perth, Edinburgh, and then back up to Inverness. Because I noticed a lot of the names of the places, when I followed the line, I thought it took the names of the places was similar again. I was like, Kin something. And then I was like, a state of Ord. I'm beginning to think the AD in BC have been like the year of the dragon or something. And it was like, because if you was living in times with a dragon flying about, I don't think you would be fighting with each other, going to war and stuff like that. I think you would work together. I think on the sight of the dragon, everybody would be down below, underneath.
So you sent me these photos, Stephen, what you're talking about with like the Inver. So you've got Inverevan Church, and then you found these Pictish stones inside the
Yeah,
church there at Inverevan, and you see
yeah.
something that looks like the Loch Ness
I
monster-ish
think it
on the
could be
stone,
similar.
and some other interesting designs on it as well. And then you sent me this carving.
It could just be two seahorses, but it looked like that's what popped up when I typed in Loch Ness Monster in stone. A horse with a fish tail.
Still very interesting. I mean, you've got the sea theme going on because you've got like fluke tails down at the bottom here.
Yep.
So, I mean, it definitely seems to belong to the water, whatever it is. Dragons, or they do kind of look like seahorses up here. So that's interesting. But you found this when you typed in Loch Ness Monster and Stone.
There's another one as well with a bigger nose.
All interesting references coming up in Scotland. You know, you mentioned King Ord, and well, this is Prince Ord, the
That was
estate
just
of
a quick
Ord.
step. There's a state of Ord, and there's a lot of Ords up there. I noticed there's Invergordon. Gordon's got Ord in it as well. And I think this place was up the back of Invergordon. And that's right exactly where I visioned the creature flying. And all these places have got the same kind of names. But I think there's maybe land up on the right-hand side of the top of Iceland, that dark blue bit. I think that's where Rufus Negra is. There are areas that you're not allowed to go to, I think.
More that they keep from us. So, like the Rupus Negra is like the black rock at the North Pole or
Yeah.
something along those lines. It's on maps, and then they say, "Oh no, that's not real. That's just a phantom island." But there's definitely something to that.
So in a lot of old maps, is it?
Hmm. So you sent me this one, Bow Fiddle Rock Dragon Food in Portnocky.
This is about 20 miles up the coast.
It kind of looks dragonish, doesn't it?
I thought it looked like an elephant sitting on its side with a chunk bitten out of its back.
Whatever it is, it looks like there's
Looks like
more to that story.
it was alive by looks of it.
Yeah, I think I can find some good photos of rock formations that look a lot like elephants. And I will see if I can get another view of this one that you sent me and compare it. But it does look like there's more going on to that.
Thinking about dragon food, I remember reading a book when I was young called Kelpie's Peril. I can't remember what it was about. I think there was a dragon in it. And I remember when I was reading it, the place I thought in my head at the time I was reading it was right where the dragon's lying at. That's where you get a lot of kelp. There's like thousands of tons of kelp grows there. So it looks like it's come down to feed off kelp. It might have been a kelp. The kelp would have caused enough gas to create fire, I think, because kelp produces a lot of nitrogen. So I think it used to come up here for a feed, maybe, and it stopped for a feed. Its head's been in the water, and then whatever event happened, and it must have happened just super quick, I think.
So there's another one to think about and look into.
Aye, definitely.
And then you said you were just looking around into free energy and you found these.
Yeah, the last time I spoke to you, my mind was on the electrical rooftops and all that. The chimneys, or the word chimney is a bit like key, money, pot. And then I found this dragons. The last time I spoke, remember I thought the chimneys was maybe some kind of protection, like a power thing to keep dragons away or like a defense thing.
But it's interesting that they would show up so much in conjunction with chimneys. You know, like the dragons and the chimneys are a thing for some reason. in the world of home decor. And that's also very similar to what's in the Wind Tower. Is it pronounced Wind Tower or Wine Tower?
It's changed its name 3 times in my lifetime. So it used to be called the Wynd, Wynd, and then it got changed to Wyne, I think wine. And then it's just like a bottle of wine now, I think. But I think it's a mind tower, I think.
So you see the same kind of imagery inside the tower in Fraserburgh where the dragon's head is, where the dragon is wrapped around the top of the lighthouse.
Yeah, that's right. Aye, and the gargoyles. Aye.
So again, the imagery is there, the folklore is there, and you really have to wake up and just start thinking differently to see it differently, like you have.
I was looking at folklore stories and I was thinking about the word folklore and I thought it's like folk lure, like a fish lure. So when I look at folklore stories now, I just think, oh, that's what they're trying to pass it off as. Or maybe there's a bit of truth in it, but any place you go to and you see the history box with the pictures and everything, I just think that's all nonsense now. A tragedy and a romance, and it's like they're all based on the same kind of thing. Try and distract. It's folk lures. It's like fish hooks to get your mind thinking about other things. A tragedy and a romance, and then you go away thinking, oh, that's what happened there, but it's not really what happened. I don't think.
I agree. I mean, I think there's bits of truth hidden away in the stories that they want to tell us are just stories. They seem to do that a lot. And then you said you were looking at domes and domed roofs.
Yeah, this thing's Victorian fountains. I think they come off of rooftops. And then I believe they were used to cover up the underground tunnels, the rail tunnels. But these things are all over the world. I found one in Australia, and they're always like just in the middle of a play park or something like that.
The stork imagery here is very interesting. I wonder what that means. The storks, birds. And then I thought this was interesting with the lines and wondering what that means.
Oh, the lines, aye.
Yeah, the lines in this picture here are interesting. Like
It's some
maybe
kind of energy.
in
Telecommunications or something. Or
some
some
kind of
kind of.
energy, some kind of
Yeah.
sound, something. We're going to go into the underground here in just a moment, but it's almost like there's more going on underneath, or there used to be more going on. So these are more examples of the idea of them being underground rail entrances.
Yep. The middle one's from Australia.
Are these two the same? This one and this one? Or they look similar?
No, they're all different, I think. They just look similar, aye. A mason told me a few years ago, he thought it was an orgone accumulator. That was the words he used.
Did you say orgone accumulators?
Orgone, yeah.
And orgone is like a natural energy, isn't it?
I'm not 100% sure, but it's a lot to do with pyramids and crystals and things like that. I think they look like they came off of rooftops, some of the grander structures.
I can see that. That comes to mind too. So there you've got the underground rail tunnels. There's abandoned underground rail tunnels everywhere. So probably more of abandoned ones than ones actually being used.
Yep, definitely, I would think.
And I encountered a lot of them when I was looking at places through Scotland and Glasgow and different places. So a bunch of rail tunnels that aren't being used anymore beneath us. And then you sent me tunnel symbolism on houses and buildings.
Oh, yeah. Usually, if you look up at the top of the house, it'll either be a circle or in between the lintels for the windows. If you see a big block in the middle of it, that's a sign for tunnels as well.
So you sent me a bunch of examples of what you've noticed around town. And then you mentioned the 1881 here at this location. Like maybe it means something.
I think it means something else. I think it means back to my Roman numerals being X's again. It would be like I've been thinking too much about that stuff.
I would agree with you. I'm sure it means something. In numerology or Masonically speaking, there's some kind of significance to 1881, like there are with other dates that are like doubles. So these are like
Double X.
doubles reversed.
Yeah.
But like 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20. I mean, I'm sure there's a significance in the Masonic world as to what that symbolism means. Just some more places. I think around Fraserburgh, where you live.
Yeah, it's all Fraserburgh. That's a Catholic church, the one on the left. And right across the road from it's a Masonic hall. And it's right next to, across the other side of the road, it's like a big pyramid-shaped island. And it's right on top of a hill as well, so there could be a lot of stuff underneath that.
Absolutely.
The two things on the photo on the right hand, that's on top of the castle as well. That's like tunnel symbols. And then there's the one on the left. That's, you see that, that's a common one.
So that brings me to the end of the slideshow. You've done a fantastic job of researching your community and asking questions and looking for more connections. And that's just scratching the surface. You mentioned earlier in this talk and last time, Fraserburgh was bombed more than London during the Second World War. So
Yep.
got to make you wonder, what were they doing that for? What was the reason? And probably not the reason that we're told, like you said, with the factory that was there. I really appreciate all your effort on this, Stephen. I know there's a lot of people out there that are interested in this subject matter that you're bringing to us. So I'm glad that you took the initiative and actually went out and did a boots on the
Great stuff.
ground video. And then the other information that you found, again, there's a lot to look into just with what we've talked about today and last time even.
I'll maybe get inside. I'll maybe find a way inside by the next time if we do it, if we do this again. Thanks for sharing it all with us.
Thankfully, we have the tools, like with the being able to get the video making programs online and using our phones to video and doing our own research. We've got the tools to start putting things together ourselves, and we're not reliant on somebody to tell us what to think.
Yep.
And so that's like a game changer for humanity, so that we can start figuring out all of this, reading between the lines of all the lies that we've been told, because there's so much, it just doesn't add up. And people with a vested interest in keeping the truth from us. So, it's like game over when we start to figure it out and connect and communicate this way. So again, I appreciate all the work that you've done and questioning the narrative and doing your own research. All this just brings us closer to trying to figure out exactly what happened here.
Yep.
So thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome, Stephen. And definitely stay in touch. See where this takes us.
Definitely.
Enjoy your evening.
Hopefully, you too. Well, is it still morning time?
It's almost noon here.
Okay. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. I sure will. You take care.
Okay, you too.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thanks now.